The year is 2012. Nintendo is coming out with a brand new gaming console. With its predecessor's notable lack of technical specs, what a better way to show off than by porting a game the Wii wasn't strong enough to run, but then also modify it to take advantage of the Nintendo-style gimmicks. Enter Batman Arkham City Armored Edition, a modified port of Arkham City built specifically for the Wii U. The most notable thing about this title would be that it was developed by WB Games Montreal, their first game ever. While the main developers of the Arkham franchise, Rocksteady Studios, took their time on the next main title, the powers that be wanted another title in the franchise, presumably to capitalize on City's success. Therefore, they took the devs responsible for the Wii U port and had them also produce their own full game on the side. What came out of this was a game built on the foundation of specifically Batman Arkham City Armored Edition, all the way down to the UI. In case you need it, here's proof. One gimmick from Armored Edition is the playing of any and all radio chatter through the Wii U gamepad.
Oh, what I hate. Little pieces of crap like you. Look at you, all scared and crying. It's embarrassing.
Someone somewhere thought switching audio from gamepad to TV sound depending on how close to a goon's conversation you were was apparently a good idea. While this new game isn't supposed to do this, even on the Wii U port, they forgot to change this in one place.
Was it this time? The crooks or your... Right. They're one and the same.
What was intended at the time to be a main installment is now viewed as a quasi-spin-off title. The interesting case study of Batman Arkham Origins. For everything I'm going to say, it's worth noting that this is by no means an awful game. Batman Arkham Origins is an ungraceful game, flawed to the core by the very means it was created. Take everything we had in the previous title, and give us more. A proposition that on first glance seems like a good idea. While the quantity of things increased, within some metrics anyways, the game fails to maintain the level of quality that made said things worth engaging with. Let's start with the world. Almost the entirety of the overworld map from Arkham City was repurposed for this title, with a general overhaul consisting of removing the dilapidation. The setting of Arkham City was a slum of a prison, this walled-off chunk of city that the men in charge were using as a dumping ground and thereby didn't care how broken down it was. Collapsed bridges that seemingly exist for no other reason but to have Batman grapple on them, a solid chunk of the city engulfed by water, skylights randomly broken. It gives off a feeling of dirt and disease, as if it was literally infested with crime. Arkham Origins repurposes this area, but the setting is a city that people are supposed to live in, so the map was cleaned up. Whatever no longer fit, they got rid of and replaced with what they could explain. While this strong aesthetic was lost with this change, the worst casualty was the optimization. Look at the Boyery. This area is separated into 3 levels: ground level, building level, and the rooftops. What separates ground level from the building level is a skylight. Because you can't fall through it, the ground level has to be approached from the openings. In Arkham City, there are a lot of openings. The city falling apart means that there are a lot of holes. Almost all chunks of this district have an opening nearby for you to grapple to and escape with. In Origins, they removed a lot of these openings because they removed the dilapidation without considering what it did to the gameplay. If you're going to mess around with this area, aka grab the collectibles, there's going to be a not insignificant amount of time of running around on foot because there's no way to grapple around. This wouldn't happen in the previous game's overworld. Assuming you get in a position to grapple around, something you may find after enough time is that the world isn't properly designed around this mechanic. The overworld map from City was a square with a small chunk in the bottom that you could not go to. This upside down U was imported into Origins, but they also wanted to expand the map. The best way they could do this was make their own section and connect it to the city map via a long bridge that no one likes going over repeatedly. The small chunk at the bottom blocked off in city was repurposed into a park that directly connects to the bridge, yet for whatever reason, they kept the boundaries built into city. The wall between the old map and the new park is just as impenetrable here as it was before. You can't fly over it. If you start on the left side of the map and want to go right, instead of going over it like you could with everything in city, you have to either go all the way around it or to the ground level through an opening. This design does not improve with the new district to the south. Various buildings cannot be flown over, various buildings cannot be conveniently grappled. At points, this makes navigation a crapshoot. You must bob and weave, where in city you could cleanly fly over everything to varying degrees of ease. Here's an example. The Hamilton Hill is a building located between Burnley and the Diamond District. This one building has no clean grapple points after a certain level, requiring you to run around it. Due to its positioning on the map, if you start on the very bottom, say the Enigma radio tower in Burnley, and want to head straight up, say to the radio tower in the Diamond District, you will head up and have to weave hard to the left, keep heading left, then weave back up and then right due to how this obstruction messes with your pathing. It's simply nowhere near as graceful as the world design in City. As long as we're on world design, let's talk about collectibles. Arkham City is, at a certain level, an optional collectathon. There are so many goddamn collectibles scattered around the map. Almost all collectibles in the game are related to the Riddler side quests, split up between Riddler trophies scattered around the map, with varying degrees of difficulty to collect, scannable riddles, a few destructible objects, and physical challenges. All of these are marked in the Riddler menu, and upon fulfilling the requirements per area, you unlock audio tapes. Individual Riddler trophies themselves largely give you out-of-main game unlocks, challenge mode maps, and concept art. Arkham City has 400 Riddler challenges, 440 if you include Catwoman. This game is densely packed. Nearly every corner has some secret to find. It's so densely packed that the game often gets the rep of having gone overboard. Getting from point A to point B is an arduous task if you're going for everything, as you'll be distracted and turned around after moving from one spotted trophy to the next. Finding everything demands a high level of 3D spatial awareness. You gotta keep your eyes open everywhere. Of course, the game tells you where everything is. Upon officially starting the Riddler side quest, you gain access to Riddler informants. From this point on throughout the game, you will see goons marked for you in green that you can interrogate for secrets to be marked on your map. Generally, a couple secrets in the corresponding area until the postgame. To interrogate them, you need to be the last man standing in an engagement. It's a small thing, but it changes the way you play the game. Prioritizing one single enemy to be last in a combat or predator sequence adds depth, and the presence of them in the overworld encourages you to divert from the main objective, which puts you on the collision course of spending more time collecting things. It's nice. Arkham Origins handles things a little differently. Being a prequel, this game has the Riddler prior to him adopting his persona. Operating as Enigma, his side quest is now more essential to the game than ever, being directly tied to a new fast travel mechanic, and as such, engaging with him is a mandatory part of the story. In place of Riddler trophies, we have Enigma data packs. 200 of them, separated into 20 sets of 10. Completing a set will unlock an audio tape contextualized as blackmail. First issue out of the way. These data packs require a further leap in logic than the Riddler trophies did. They're hidden behind various small puzzles or what have you, but Enigma deliberately doesn't want you to find them in canon.
Tackling these towers is one thing, but my handlers, my data, my network relays, those aren't meant for you, so back off!
Enigma also only really has these packs now. There are some breakable tower things associated with his quest, but I'm writing those off. Riddles are gone. The old destructible object challenges are gone. It's just these 200 objects. A total that, despite the map being more than twice the size of the previous game, is half as many. Every corner in this world does not have a secret. There is plenty of empty space to go around. This is not to say you won't bump into the random collectible here and there, quite literally in fact. There is a shocking amount of data packs that are just sitting around, waiting to be picked up, requiring nothing more than moving to their position. City did this as well, but not to this extent. Of course, if the challenge is just finding them and nothing more, the question then becomes, how do you mark them on your map? Well, you see, the moment you check up on the Enigma HQ, something that's marked the moment you first enter the overworld, you will then mark the locations of Enigma data handlers. Now, data handlers are a lot different from the informants from City. Each handler is tied to one series of data packs. Interrogate him and you'll mark all of those packs on your map. For whatever reason, they decided the challenge of saving one guy for the end was too demanding and changed how it works. Data handlers have to be defeated like everyone else, but instead of being totally knocked out, Batman only sorta knocks them out so that he can return to interrogate them after the fight. To add insult to injury, any enemy that can't be formally knocked out is immune to the final enemy one-hit rule. In most combat, once the enemy group is reduced to 1, the next hit knocks them out immediately. This falls apart with data handlers. If they happen to be the last man standing, you can hit them, cause them to fall to the ground, and have no one else around that's obvious to attack. If you're not paying that close attention and assume there's someone off screen, this will break your combo. Having this one exception just feels bad to play against, which makes it unfortunate that they pop up occasionally in the main story, and that the game has a hard time marking the handlers. They're supposed to be shaded white, but unlike in the City, only become shaded if properly observed. If you see them but look away, the game just gives up on the effect, and suddenly you're dealing with a scenario where a random goon in your fight has different properties to the rest of them, and you don't know which. It also doesn't help that them lying on the ground helplessly waiting to be interrogated is so close to how they look knocked out normally, and as such, if the group is large enough, may make it a pain in the ass to find where the guy ended up once the fight is over. The map itself is also slightly less helpful for figuring out where everything is once you do have it marked. Bane's hideout and path to it thereby are locations located around Park Row pushing into the Boyery. You can find collectibles here. These collectibles are marked on the map all of the handlers. So they're marked on your map where the geographic location of the underground path would be. If you are doing collectible cleanup, good luck realizing this. City had these issues to a lesser extent with its underground, but at least there, the underground is marked on the map. Past all this, Enigma data packs only get you audio tapes. The staggered rewards you got in City are either gone or allocated to story beats. There are, however, other side things unrelated to Enigma. This game does have scannables. 2 types to be precise. Anarchy tags and Pinkney plaques. Both of these have no way to be marked on your map, require detective vision to be seen, and serve little but to give you more lore to read up on. Physical challenges are also in this game, and they are interesting. In City, physical challenges were their own category of Riddler challenges. Do a thing, you're done. The only thing stopping you from executing them were the necessary abilities, but once acquired, they can be done at any point in any order. Origins introduced a new system, the Dark Knight challenges. These are split into 4, but really 3 different branches of challenges, for you to do over the course of the game. Gotham Protector deals with navigation, Shadow Vigilante deals with combat, and Worst Nightmare deals with stealth. Starting with the least offensive, Gotham Protector challenges can be done largely immediately. Most of them involve gliding in some particular manner. For examining purposes, let's look at rank 7 and 9. Rank 7 involves gliding 250 straight meters, and 9 involves gliding 150 only with your grapnel accelerator band. Now, you may be wondering what constitutes straight. That is a good question, and I don't have an answer to you. In City, it was glide these distances in one go, but here if you make a turn, you're maybe screwed? Because for whatever reason, it doesn't need to be perfectly straight, but turn too far and the metric is broken. How you're supposed to know how far is too far is beyond me. Also, you may notice that there seems to be some overlap here. If you do 7, you might have also done 9 in the meanwhile. Well, if you had, then do it again, because it doesn't work like that. These challenges have to be done in order. If you fulfill the conditions of the next one at the same time you finish the current, then it registers, but that is an exception to the rule. Rank 8 involves going somewhere, a location you could have already been to, but need to return because that rank hasn't unlocked yet. In practice, this makes this system a thing you can only get done if you're focusing on it. Any natural consequences of regular gameplay are going to get held off by that one level that you got stuck on. The last level of Gotham Protector is a prime example of something that can screw you if you don't unlock it early. Stop a crime in progress in every district. A glorified combat spawning mechanic that is a pain in the ass to force a spawn out of, and is therefore best done gradually over the whole game as the spawns naturally occur. Every crime in progress defeated prior to reaching rank 15 doesn't count, something that wouldn't have been an issue with City's method. Let's skip Shadow Vigilante for now and go immediately to Worst Nightmare. You are not finishing this in one playthrough. You just aren't. It can't happen. The reason for this is these challenges are super specific and contain 2 predator sequences. Given that, they also seem incapable of overlapping like the other challenge types of these. Now process that there are 15 of them, a total that exceeds the number of predator rooms in the game at all. You are not finishing this in one playthrough. Now, a couple of them can be forced through at any time, even when considering that predator rooms do not reset. So to balance them out, let's look at rank 6. If you're going for completion, you will get stuck here. You must perform 4 oddly specific takedowns in one single predator encounter. The biggest deal breaker here is the hanging ledge takedown, a takedown that requires this very specific metal grating to perform. This grating only appears in 2 spots in the game, one of which isn't conducive for the rest of the challenge. The only place you can complete this is the Gotham City Bank area, an area you can go to twice. If you reach the bank before rank 6, you're screwed, and you must do it during an optional boss encounter. Don't do it there, and you aren't doing it. Although, given the rarity of the hanging ledge takedown, good luck guessing how to do it at all without a guide. While some of these challenges are cruel in their specificity, others just don't work. Use the sonic battering to lure an enemy into a takedown only registers if the game feels like it. Something to do with the enemy deciding to kneel and examine the thing, which they only do sometimes. Moving on to the third category, Shadow Vigilante. This is about hand-to-hand combat and is in some ways the least objectionable. Use a move so many times, achieve a particular rating in a fight, standard stuff that can be done at any time. Some of the challenges, mainly rank 15, seem rough, but it's all totally doable. If you try rushing it though, you will however get stuck on rank 12. That's because of how the upgrade system works. How in the world did they screw up the upgrade system? It boggles the mind. In City, when you leveled up, you got to purchase an upgrade. Barring gear you haven't yet collected, you could invest into whatever you wanted with one caveat. There were a couple chains. Critical Strikes was a prerequisite to Special Combat Boost, which led to Free Flow Focus. The special moves had to be unlocked in order. A couple upgrades led to another, but they were secluded to themselves and thereby the whole of your options were laid out for you right at the beginning. Origins is a tad bit more restrictive. For whatever reason, they thought that the chains were the best thing since sliced bread, since they made everything part of a chain. Probably the most offensive thing is the best, coolest upgrades here are locked behind a bunch of crap you don't want. Extra life by the means of armor is something people put off because the games are generally easy enough that you don't need them, so getting more exotic options is the priority. If you want your special moves, Blade Takedown, Special Combat Boost, later double specials, you need to buy through all the armor upgrades to reach them. The funnier aspect of this system is it seems at odds with the remains of City, the blueprint this game was built around. You see, on PC, the execution of special moves was allocated to specific keys. E for Special Takedown, R for Bat Swarm, T for Multi-Ground Takedown, and Y for Disarm. This was the order that the moves were unlocked in that game, so their placement on the keyboard made sense regardless of how cumbersome hitting Y mid-combo can be. Origins has the exact same special moves as City, and thereby the same default control scheme to keep the peace, but changed the order you unlocked them. You start with Special Takedown, then you unlock Multi-Ground Takedown, and finally Bat Swarm. So, the way you unlock them in this game is you move from E to T, then back to R. Imagine how weird this would be if you've never played City. Of course, you may be wondering where the Special Disarm move ended up. And that's its own thing. This game decided it would be a great idea to lock multiple upgrades behind side quests. The Dark Knight challenges talked about before. These unlock 2 upgrades apiece that used to be just regular upgrades you purchased casually. Past that, almost every side quest in the game has some upgrade reward for finishing them. Some of these aren't too significant, but there are some that are. Critical Strike is a core piece of your combat kit. You buy it level 1 in City and for good reason. Without it, combat drags out a lot longer than it needs to. For the purposes of this game, there is a second benefit to having it, because landing critical strikes is needed to complete rank 12 of Shadow Vigilante. If you don't have it, you aren't getting that rank. So naturally, there was a playthrough I had where I never got it. Not because I was actively avoiding side quests, but because I never found it. Here's the setup. The Joker has just revealed himself. You have fought yourself out of Gotham Merchants Bank. You're forced to leave through the front doors because the way you got in is blocked. You are now in the Bowery, lowest level and locked into the Skylight issue addressed earlier. You have a wave point. You know where you're going. All you need to get there is a way out. You walk forward, fight a few cops, and you are faced with this fork in the road. What the game wants you to do is walk forward and investigate this mysterious baby carriage to start the Shiva side quest. The thing pushing you there is this crying sound effect. But, and hear me out, what if you go right? Right presents you with a way to grapple out and also happens to be in the direction of your wave point. What happens if you just, leave? Well, if you do that, you just screwed yourself, because this is the one time in the game that the start of the side quest isn't marked on your map. If you are not paying attention, maybe you got the sound on low and are listening to a podcast or something, you are not going to be able to find this quest again. Naturally, the only side quest that doesn't start marked also gives you the most useful upgrade. Yet past that, you can only start this around halfway into the game. This means the first half you are banned from using Critical Strike, which was a level 1 upgrade before. Here's another offensive side quest, Bird. Now, what the hell is Bird, besides Swoop, of course? Well, Bird is Bane's lieutenant. Never heard of him before, but that's what he is. His side quest consists of 2 fights, 1 scan, and a small fight where Bird is a regular goon with a health bar for some reason. It's one of the more pathetic side quests in all honesty, but the bad part is when it's unlocked. You can only fight Bird after Bane's faction is introduced, which happens at the tail end of the game. This is the last main game side quest and the last side quest related upgrade you'll unlock, barring Dark Knight issues. You get Special Combo Disarm. This game managed to make this an even bigger issue than you would first assume, by making almost every fight in the world have at least 1 gunner somehow. Apparently, Gotham has a gun control issue because they're everywhere, and not secluded to just Predator-designed chunks like in City. Practically every small pool of enemies are going to find themselves with a firearm around if you go far enough into this game, and the reason I think they did this was the addition of the Disruptor. The optional upgrade of jammed firearms in City has been forced onto you through the story, so they designed it with the expectation that you'd remove the weapons before entering the fight, only to leave and find another fight with more guns and charges that haven't been replenished. A nice way to deal with these weapons would have been to remove them with Special Disarm, but because it's locked behind Bird, you're forced to go the vast majority of the game without it. All those gunners, just deal with them. Something else you're going to need to deal with if you engage with this title to any real extent are glitches. While nowhere near as bad as release, except for the Wii U version, Arkham Origins is simply a shockingly unpolished game. The biggest problem area in my experience would be its physics. Gliding can decide to randomly not work, and the ragdolling of enemies can have some interesting results. While these fall from amusing to annoying, they aren't anywhere close to game enders, merely bad form. Another example of bad form would be the change in the sound direction. In City, the defeat of an enemy provided audio feedback. This was a clear indicator of not only an enemy going down, but how loud the takedown was. In Predator sections, the difference between a silent takedown and a loud takedown is clearly conveyed by this feedback. Whoa! It is good form. Origins keeps the feedback for most of the combat sections. Enemy goons that cannot be fully knocked out, as mentioned earlier, don't provide this effect and as such feel much less impactful to defeat. Origins then also completely removes it from Predator sections. Not only did we lose the more subdued sound effect of the silent takedown, we've lost the louder effect of the instant. It feels somewhat embarrassing coming off City, like something more should be happening but isn't. It's simply less impactful, so when you consider this was a deliberate change in the sound design, it just seems odd. These issues aside, it is worth reiterating this game is not bad. While it could very realistically be forgotten in a post-Arkham Knight world, it does have merits unto itself. Its story is probably the best of the franchise, and quality of the boss fights are commendable. The game attempts to advance the Arkham formula, the issue lies in the execution. Compare the remote electrical charge in City to the remote claw in Origins. The former had complexity, you needed to think which direction to charge in the case of puzzles. Meanwhile, there are some very specific applications for Predator sections like disabling jammy devices or knocking down armored goons that can't be silently knocked out. The latter is used very simply. If it's used for a puzzle, then you simply use it. No thought into how, find the point to shoot and you shoot. If you use it in a Predator section, you could maybe use it to set up some exotic takedowns, or you'll use it as an immediate free kill on multiple goons by launching them to vantage points without any issue. It's to gameplay what the fast forward button is to movies, only slightly better due to some weird things you can do like an explosive canister into a group of goons. Challenge is often built on limitations. The fact that there are certain things you can't do, and therefore working around them, is where the fun comes from. When the remote claw simply does away with goons to almost no cost, when the shock gloves does away with enemy types by punching through everything, are these really improvements? Like everything else in the game, it's more in addition to what came before that doesn't compromise the experience, but it doesn't improve it. It's an advancement, a step forward from what City had without considering if they were heading in the right direction. Origins is often lambasted for being too close to City, and in many ways it is, yet in my eyes this game serves as a prime example that advancement is not improvement.